Tonight, we're fortunate to have two readers. Our first reader is Angie Trudell Vasquez. Ms. Vasquez is a poet, writer, performer, and an activist since childhood. She is Mexican-American and grew up in Iowa, while currently living in Madison, Wisconsin. Angie is starting her second term as the City of Madison's Poet Laureate, the first Latina to hold this position. She holds an MFA from the Institute of American Indian Arts. She is also a Macondista or fellow of Sandra Cisneros' prestigious Macondo Writers Workshop. Ms. Vasquez has 4 published poetry collections, including In Light, Always Light from 2019, and her newest, My People Redux, just published this January. Her work has been published in numerous journals and anthologies, including the Rumpus, Taos Journal of Poetry, Cloud Throat, Raven Chronicles, South Florida Poetry Journal, and Yellow Medicine Review, where she's also been a guest editor. Along with Margaret Rozga, Angie co-edited Through This Door, Wisconsin in Poems, published in 2020. Her work has also been featured on the podcast The Slowdown, and her moving poem Dispatches from Radar Hill, which reflects on losses from the pandemic, was read by a nurse at the Concert of Remembrance at the Kennedy Center last fall on the eve of the 20th anniversary of 9/11. In an interview, Angie said, and I quote, "Poetry must come from a deep well of truth, your truth. Poetry can close the gap between people, foster greater connection and healing. Poets cannot be false." Please welcome Angie Trudell Vasquez, who's sharing her true voice with us tonight. Welcome, Angie.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Lisa, for that wonderful intro. I'm going to start with reading, and I'm going to put my timer on. So this is my collection, which is wonderful flowers, and this comes from a prairie, a reserve near my home. And I go there quite often to write, read, and edit, and look at my neighbors. So I'm going to start with a quote by C.D. Wright, who's an Arkansas poet. And she crosses an urban-rural divide, I think, and I feel like I have 2 feet in both places as well. "I am looking for a way to vocalize, perform, act out, address the commonly felt crises of my time. These are spiritual exercises." And that's from Cooling Time by C.D. Wright. So I like to start, kind of ease us in, and we're going to start with a little poem called They Could Be Sisters. They could be sisters. 3 girls with straight waist-length black hair go round and round the circle. They cycle, talk, sing, locks whip in their wake. Sunlight highlights red handlebar streamers. Spinning on 2 wheels, they split, jump curbs, catch air. To fly or flee or speed, perched high and free on a purple banana seat. This is where my power started flowing, on a bike, in the driver's seat. The 3 roll on grass when a voice echoes, shouting distance rules, close the drapes. So they could be sisters. And I'm going to read a poem called Kick the Can. And in this collection, I go back and forth in memories. And I like that about poetry. You can time travel. We played a lot of Kick the Can growing up in Iowa. Kick the can. Trains rattle across 4 Mile Creek, carry livestock to feed the hungry machine. Swimming in flooded cornfields, we crawl through DDT. Mulberries' purple stain ooze through bare toes, starburst heels. Mosquitoes buzz in our ears, feed on limbs, bite under shorts. Ticks land on our heads, cause night body inspections. Corn arms scratch our legs as we run through farmers' young rows, play, find the scarecrow, the hobo. We cut off kids, play, kick the can, under earth shine, cry out in the soft blue dark. Sweet clover, dandelions, oak trunks know our names as we dangle from stripped limbs, dive off at 6 feet. I am 9, the ringleader, the I know girl. We tell ghost stories, hunt for clues, peer into pains. Little ones stand on shoulders to see, report back. We trample earth paths, search for caves, sunken farmhouses, old graves. Sometimes semis tip over and hooves clatter up our dead-end street. Earth crashing roar, nostril, thunder, snorts, steam. Cows and horses destined for meatpacking plants plot for freedom, pass under our window frames, their last chance hangs. Mothers run out of their kitchens, scoop stunned toddlers from the middle of the stampede. Remark how often this happens. Animals breaking semi-steel doors. Weingartner Road, where underground railroads ran and good Iowans hid refugees and root cellars in between fake walls, civil wars, until the next train crossed the land, the creek, Loisfield, straight line from China, spine of tundra. Trains still rattle, carry oil, soybeans, and children stub their toes bloody all summer play, kick the can, barefoot on concrete, moisture riding their back, sweat beads the second they leave the shower. Reporters crack eggs on sidewalks, the whites steam. We had some hot summers in Iowa, and we did swim in the flooded cornfields. So I'm gonna move a little and do a shorter poem. In yoga, we'd say, assume a good seat, a comfortable seat. So this is Maze Maiden. And my teacher, Sherwin Bitsui, read a poem in his language. He's Navajo, and he said, write the poem you hear. And this came out of that. It's called Maze Maiden after Rexley Jim. Wait, chica, listen. Press knees, lips, ears to earth floor. Corn in the beginning, corn in the end. Green arms dance in rows, ancestor whispers shed pollen in wind. Years of plenty, stories fill bowls. Children grow long. Tomorrow's seeds rest indoors. That's Maze Maiden. And he was reading a poem about corn. And it's interesting how many of us in that room got that somehow. I think about the power of poetry to do that. So I'm going to read a poem called Everybody is Somebody's Child. And I know we're probably all having all sorts of feelings. So everybody is somebody's child. For the woman who swims on her back, baby floating on her breasts, eyelashes facing the stars. For the girl who walks 3 miles for fresh water, gird atop of her head, bare feet on earth. For the mother who shields her child with board games and hot chocolate from falling cluster bombs, whose fingers read coins and saute red peppers, onions, gifts bought at the open air market, who quarters tomatoes from the stand along the road, roasts sweet corn from the back of a pickup truck on a lost country highway from a woman folded in half. The widow who hiked for days, holding on with both hands, 2 hands smaller than her own. Another one strapped on her back with a bottle, stopped at a border due to the wrong stamp, and offices closed for the holiday. The strangers who found her crying on a side road, a couple who crossed the Rio Grande with her later when the moon shone, though they had papers. Toddler perched on the man's shoulders, fingertips dangling bags for precious lives, snacks, water for the journey. The grandmother who watches her grandchildren while their parents work outside the home, teaches them to share building blocks, how to read, walks them to the park to see the squirrels and ducks on the pond scatter at their joyful cries, short legs scrambling down the bank. The woman who rides the waves and prays the rickety boat will reach Lesbos shore, and on the other side waits warm bread, lentil soup, tea with honey, coffee, a bed to sleep, people who will throw open their doors and let them in, let them in. That's everybody is somebody's child. And let's see how much time I have. Oh, I've got time. Some of these are long ones, some are short. So I'm going to read the blizzard because hopefully the blizzards are behind us, right? No more blizzards because the robins are here. Blizzard. Rolling blind, no white lines, no light, no streets. Snow beneath my wheels, 5 inches deep. I cannot see. Ice pelts me. Where am I? My eyes search for a glimmer of green. Please let me be going straight, not crossing. Ice, Iowa ice storm legends. Tree limbs crack through roofs. My car spins into a ditch. The shame ride back with a stranger. Worst stretch, closest to home. I could be driving off-road, chasing death. Howling wind beats the gold car. Alone I pray, Hail Mary full of grace. A child again chanting, chasing ghosts from my bedroom. Or driving home with my parents on Christmas night in a storm. Ice roads, no sand trucks, no salt. My dad swerves. My mom grabs the wheel. We were crossing. Me, a kid in the back with my sisters. I cast the rosary over dashboard. Bridge cover, my savior. Highway splits ahead. Steer, plow, metal, rubber against wet. Take the next exit. Tire, spin, slip. Carry me to bed. And no more snow for the year, please. So I'm going to close with a little poem. Then I'm going to read some other pieces. And this is on loyalty. I think about how writing for me is a way of discovery. On loyalty. I write poems to save myself from drowning, falling into the abyss of busyness, to heal the world and me, to learn what I am thinking, so the pen can tap into my brain, reveal what is hiding, not to court friends or foes, but to keep from disappearing. Those are from My People Redux on Finishing Line Press. And I want to read Dispatches from Radar Hill. And this was a request from the mayor. And so this was her request. And it's over a year old. Dispatches from Radar Hill. For the bus driver on his shift who left and never came back. For the nurse who beat breast cancer but not COVID. For her colleagues who remember that every time a Billy Joel song came on, she'd pump her fist in the air and scream, Billy, with joy and pure fan fury. For the receptionist who carries on with the fist pumping and shouts in her name. For the coworker who told the story to us at her virtual funeral. For our elders in nursing homes who gave and gave to their friends and family, their community, buying all the Girl Scout cookies on the block, saving money for their grandkids' birthdays, who will miss their own in 2021. For the teachers who taught until they could not, for their students who struggled to learn with them online, for the parents who remain after so hard without your best friend, ally, accomplice there with you by your side, an island snoring each night. For those who lost their best friend and never got to say goodbye, or goodbye was a 2x4-inch screen, this the last time you saw them alive. For the widows who take poetry workshops 3 days after their love dies. For those who remain, carry the name, the people who remember their words, wit, wisdom, how they were scratch cooks, made chicken curry and rice, fry bread and pinto beans, sweet potato pie, peach cobbler, took turns driving the kids to practice, stomp puddles in rain. Remember, light a candle, say a prayer, a blessing, some funny thing they said when alive, when you laughed so hard you cried, but you didn't. That was a road trip, a family vacation, when the back seat smelled less than fresh after a drive through the desert without air conditioning. These are the days of our lives, and to those who loved and lost, this poem is for you, for me. Let us mourn all those we loved who no longer breathe this spring air, or get to see their first robin this season. The world is a lovely place when you care and have skin in the game and harbor a secret love in your heart for all things full of color, sound, and feathers, soft sheets, chocolate ice cream, puppy breath, baby chuckles, your face in the morning, in the mirror, smiling back, so alive. That's Dispatches from Radar Hill. Wow, when you're given a nice chunk of time to read, it's a luxury because poets usually get 5 or 10 minutes. So thank you. I'm going to read something that I submitted recently. And so I will say it's newer and I usually edit many times, but this one feels right. So this is How to Write Absence. How to Write Absence. A hollow cobalt vase, a bottle universe, dirges sung at your funeral, chiseled gravestone markers, one plate at supper, rugged wheelbarrows still, purple iris blooms short, violet carpets cry out for your footsteps in our backyard. Silent moth wings drink at night from the bird bath, take turns with the bees, fireflies. Crickets sing, ants plow tunnels underneath, worms creep, turn dirt in their wake. Tonight we forget our worries. Spoon, sleep, sound, kick off blankets, tug sheets. Cold, we lack insulation from the deep freeze. The earth hums hello, goodbye, gracias, go to sleep. Agile light streams bend the glass, gold orange dream halos circle the bamboo floor. You laid, new homeowner with fresh knees, broad back. We wax for years with bare toes, feet, padded slipper soles, pet dander, filio dust fill the cracks. Now you stir, make coffee, feed the mew cats. I cry 5 minutes max. Anticipate your absence. No smooth torso flesh smell at dawn. Write the scene where you come back. So that one is How to Write Absence. And you're the first to hear it. And I really think it's important when you write that you read it aloud to folks, because then it's like, something sounds different. So that's always a good editing point for me. So I have a little bit of time. So I'm going to read from In Light, Always Light, which remarkably is the same park near my house. I do really spend a lot of time there, and it has a beautiful sled hill. So I'm going to read Space Time, and I'm practicing a technique by Arthur Z, who's a Chinese American writer, where every line is a poem. So in this poem, with 2 parts, every line is a poem. Space Time, 1. We are magic dying. Pink peonies gasp tight, ants assist open petals. No peony exists without ministrations of light. Brick wall frames space between drive. A garden of red clay pots brightens balcony. All balconies lit with green light caress eyes. Eyes, mystery, upset images transform and skull. How we got here is fought over in courtrooms. People pretend to be God, brandish fire sticks. Hands, tools, nails, weapons. A newborn is a garden of purple heirloom potatoes. An angel reads minds from her high chair, babbles. Mother feeds child smashed orange skin, sweet potatoes with tiny spoon. We are most vulnerable when we sit at the table with fork and knife. 2. Early rose light calls from window, jackrabbits bound, flight occurs on ground. Where are my crow friends? Hawk brown circle, school bathe in blue light. Students descend, stairs fade into brilliance. Talks done, talk begins. Black pen scratches white paper. Mind waxes, sheds peacock feathers. How do you begin to think mired in thought and self-doubt? Walk clears canvas, blank sheets beg, pull feet to mountain, ascend. All right, I got a few minutes to read a couple more. You have favorite poems, you really do, like pets or cats. So I'm going to read this one for, I dance with a group of women in Milwaukee, and I call it kind of hippie ballet, but we dance along the woods or the water. And it's a beautiful thing to channel your inner 7-year-old child. And we're women from all ages and ethnicities and races and economic levels. And it is so much fun. So we have a routine called Wild Prayer, which is to heal the earth. And this is a poem named after that routine. Wild Prayer. Brown earth floors, breathe feet, sweaty bodies. We glow, glisten, meet, leaping in mid-flight. The swivel in the mirror, we are magic dying. Blooming in our bodies, bare souls touch dead trees. Arms raise, twist, praise all that sings. Praise goddess monkey teacher from up north who left to dance on hallowed ground, on the edge of blue sky lakes with sisters round and round. I got to read that for a friend, and they asked why I had a period on the end when I didn't have one anywhere else. And I said, because when you're swiveling, when you're spinning, if you're old ballerina dancer, you have to stop, right? You have to stop. So you have to have the period to stop. So I'm going to close with this poem, and I'm so proud of this collection that Peggy and I did together through this door. It's a beautiful collection. And I'm going to read the title poem, or not the title poem, but my poem in here called What in That. And I read this weekend for some high school students, and I said, I heard this first. I heard the sound before I heard the poem. And here's the poem. What in that? What woman picked the corn, split the husk, and molded the seed that fed the people and opened the world? What being climbed down the tree, made the savannah a refuge? Who caught the strike that lit the bush, that started the spark, that became the flame that lit the hearth and traveled village to village, hollowed horn of smoldering smoke that started the fire, that cooked the kill, that fed the self to grow so big? What worker birthed the child, cut the cord, swaddled it, and kept on going down her row? What mother walked thousands of miles with 2 hands held in those smaller than her own? What father carried his child over mountaintops, swam through rivers, crossed deserts and lakes with 1 arm? What prisoner pierced the lock, walked out into the sunshine? What grandparent let her daughter sleep while the child rose, bathed its skin in rosewater and lavender, sung songs of ones and twos until it cooed back ohs and ahs blowing bubbles? What woman picked the corn, split the husk, and spilled the seed that fed the people and opened our world? Thank you.
Woohoo! Lovely.
Thanks very much, Angie.
Thank you very much, Angie. Now we're going to turn to Ed Morin, who is going to introduce our next guest. Ed?
Thank you. Margaret Rozga, who is happy to be called by the nickname Peg, is a lifelong Wisconsin resident. She was a Wisconsin Poet Laureate in 2019 and 2020. She lives in Milwaukee. She earned her bachelor's degree at Alverno College and an MA and a PhD in English at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. An emeritus professor of English at the University of Wisconsin, Waukesha, she continues to teach poetry workshops for continuing education in what is now the University of Milwaukee, University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, Waukesha campus. Her poems draw on her experiences and interests as an educator, avid reader, researcher, parent, and an advocate for social and racial justice. She has altogether 5 books, and beginning in 2009, Those titles were 2000 Nights and One Day, Though I Haven't Been to Baghdad, Justice, Freedom, Herbs, Pestiferous Questions, A Life in Poems, and then finally, this year, Holding Myself Together, selected and new and selected poems. During her time studying at Alberno College, Margaret became involved in the emerging civil rights movement. And in the summer of 1965, she joined a group of Milwaukee volunteers to work with the Southern Christian Leadership Conference in the summer voting registration project in rural Alabama. She participated in protests against the Eagles Club in 1966 in Milwaukee, and also in the open housing marches in 1967 and 68. In fact, you can say that she became famous in Milwaukee for doing that. It started out as a small knot of people and ended up as many hundreds who badgered the city council to pass a fair housing law. In 1976, she married former youth counselor James Gropey, and they had 3 children. She and Angie have edited the anthology Through This Door, Wisconsin, Wisconsin in Poems. And we may be hearing some things from there. So various people have given wonderful testimonials about her, and I want to read 2 of them that I agree with. Wendy Vardman, who's past Poet Laureate of Madison, writes of Margaret's poetry. It is both personal and communal, and above all, purposeful. Chicago poet Martha Vertrice Duty says, each voice speaks with immediacy, impossible to ignore. Let's welcome Margaret Rozga.
Thank you, Ed, for that very wonderful introduction. I think you know as much about me as I know about myself.
Oh, you just muted me. Okay.
And thank you for this invitation to read tonight. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I know that you all have lots of other choices of what you could be doing with your time. And I thank you for deciding to spend it with us and with these poems. I'm going to read tonight from this new book, Holding Myself Together, came out last May. So it's not quite a year old, pretty soon a birthday. Holding Myself Together is something that became foremost in my experience, that feeling of things falling apart and trying to keep it all together became very prominent in the last 2 years since COVID and other traumatic events that we've gone through or we've witnessed or we've heard about. It probably is something that has been long standing, but it certainly reached a peak in the last couple of years. So I think of this book as maybe being as close to a memoir as I will ever write. I once did have a publisher tell me that if I'd write a memoir, she'd publish it, but I couldn't quite find the right gear, the right voice for a memoir. So maybe this is kind of a poetic memoir. And in that spirit, I think of the first section, which are poems that riff on Alice in Wonderland, the story, and themes of Alice in Wonderland. I think of that as kind of a coming of age story that in many ways fits me. I think of Alice as a child who had a pretty protected childhood and then encounters all kinds of cruelty and meanness and chaos that she didn't know existed, and she is trying to cope with it. Now, in Lewis Carroll's version, this is all a dream, and she is awakened at the end of Alice in Wonderland, but by her sister telling her it's just a dream. Dream or not, there's a lot of truth in the symbols, symbolic truth in the things that she experiences. And so I begin by acknowledging Alice. I say, here is my girlhood story. She says nothing. He says, I'm sorry if you were upset. I say nothing. A song beneath the surface, music before words. I've been running away from myself for a long time. Every time I stop for a breath, I catch up. She catches up. Here I am, she says, refusing to be a victim. Can we collaborate? Definitely, I say. The music behind my words says no before saying yes, though not a nanosecond of pause. He says, what are you doing here? What are you doing here? He says, he sends her to fetch gloves. He closes the sky. She says, I fancied that kind of thing never happened. He says he's late, has to hurry. He has friends, but first he sounds a pitch pipe, an internal pitch pipe. It sounds like a clearing of his throat. He throws her another question and another. She juggles them without dropping any. So you probably caught the sense of the rabbit as the he in that poem. A lot of the poems follow the Alice story rather closely, but I do some innovation. I give her sister a bigger part. And in the original by Lewis Carroll, the sister is reading a book, unidentified. I have her read Keats. And I have her read Keats because of Keats' famous lines about truth and beauty being identified at one with the other. And it's a way of having Alice's search be a search for beauty. But here is romantic poets. Alice's sister reads Keats. What does Alice see on the page? Empty spaces every second line, every handful of lines. What reason, she wants to ask, for skipping so? It makes her jumpy. If only she could at least sketch in a lovely sun, a cloud, a bird. But writing in books upsets even a dear sister. What maidens loath, what mad pursuit, what struggle to escape, what pipes and timbrels, what wild ecstasy. Alice does a lot of running when she's in Wonderland. One of the things that I do is have Alice live into adulthood and build on her experience running. She becomes a runner, she becomes a marathoner. And here's the first poem about Alice running. Alice runs. She and her sister row upriver without a care. Picnic on the green along the riverbank. Her sister brings bound up words, unbinds them, reads. Alice tucks scarcely realized words into her pocket, runs, trips, falls. At bottom of her discomfiting imagination, she encounters challenge after challenge. Excuse me, gets clobbered by off with her head. I begin to write. Pause. No, that's not the way to start. Pause. Think again. Oh, well, better this start than none. It will come to me later. Cross out, delete, get up, walk away. Down at the river, full array of sun splay and flora. Ah, yes. No, too much. Keep running. Yes. Think marathon. Runners may read my words. Every hesitant one of them. First a grin, then a cat, then being told which way depends on where you want to go. The rabbit perhaps does not think whole, but home, deeper than surface beauty. Yet this seems not the reason the rabbit hurried, beauty as home, home as beauty, beauty as garden, vegetable, or flower. How unlike a rabbit to pass it by. Alice doesn't yet know beauty is what she hurried after. At a glimpse of the garden, she knows. She'd enter if only she were the right size. Something she cannot control, though she reads and follows directions, a bite of this, a swallow of that. She's always wrong. Beauty is a great idea, but it's impossible. A locked door, a key too heavy or out of reach. Alice hurries on, stops for tea, stops to ask directions, gets caught up in a royally wicked game, almost forgets the garden, forgets where she wants to go. But fear not, Alice takes control. Even when she's answered curtly, even when her questions beget more questions, even when talk loops in caterpillar circles, who are you? Explain yourself. I don't see, not a bit. Even when it arcs around again to, well, who are you? Even when she feels she is not herself, even when she feels she is losing her temper, Alice minds her manners, checks her voice. Well, I should like to be a little larger, sir, if you wouldn't mind. Finally, the answer is right in front of her in the mushroom the caterpillar vacates. One side will make you grow taller, the other side will make you grow shorter. Alice thinks she may as well give it a try. She extends her reach, her arms half circle the mushroom. She breaks off a piece into each hand. This is where she wakes up to how she can take control. And as I said, I see Alice as being archetypal. Every story, at least every questioning person's story, maybe every activist story. Verb of action, verb of being. Alice leaves home, crosses the creek, runs 3 blocks on her way here to babysit my children, but she doesn't sit. She doesn't let them sit. She takes them to hunt treasure along the banks of the creek. Acorns, moss, thistle, don't touch. rabbit tracks. Alice, my colleague's daughter, walks a brisker pace than her parents, dreams of walking farther, walking faster, running into new adventures, dreams of flying, living abroad, spending next year in India, talks her parents into letting her go. Alice is a woman whose real name is Venus, but when she turns a rubbish-strewn vacant lot into a flourishing community space, she names it Alice's Garden. Alice, also called Melissa, organizes students to protest the war. Also called Stephanie, spends summer on the reservation teaching bareback riding at the tribal college. Also called Rachel, goes door to get a read on current issues and get out the vote. Alice's one and all, as was I, all through high school, through college, searching for a way into the garden, always too big to fit through the gate or too small to lift the key. Alice I was when post Selma to Montgomery March and pre-passage of the Voting Rights Act, I fell into an adventure working for voting rights in rural Alabama. Alice may be pen in hand or sitting at my computer, chasing words that check their pocket watches, mumble about being late, call me by a name not my own, bid me fetch their gloves and fan, and maybe even when I run their errands, I still am Alice. So the second section of the book, called The Last 6 Miles Are the Hardest, something that a marathoner told me, are civil rights poems. And this one kind of sums up where I think we are now, dressing up the tradition. It's still there, raw there at lunch counters of our minds, our souls. Closing Woolworths could not erase it, not given its firmly fixed seat, nor could putting sheets back on beds, snarling dogs back in kennels, patronizing faces in high places and crosses still burn, codes still smolder, singe those too young to know what a noose is. Suit and tie it, it's still a night rider. Ed mentioned my participation in Milwaukee's open housing marches. And so let me read a couple of poems about that. This first one, Prologue to Milwaukee, kind of gives you an overview. Prologue to Milwaukee. Before Milwaukee and south of Wisconsin, people on the march, boycotting buses, saying no more pay up front to go to the back. People on the march, sitting in at lunch counters, Greensboro, Nashville, denied service, beaten, jailed, but their spirit resists arrest, advances. People on the march to the county courthouse, Washington, D.C., the Lincoln Monument, the Jefferson Memorial, all the way from Selma to Montgomery, Chicago into Cicero. Cicero? History remembers the dream, forgets nightmares. But those startled awake, stay awake, remember, try again, march on, inspire individual photos, moving pictures, people on the march, moving north, Milwaukee, moving into the heart of a young African-American woman, a lawyer, married to a lawyer. But they live with negatives, blockbusting, restrictive covenants, people on the march, moving a young African-American man, a Marine returned from Vietnam seeking a home for his family, told by the owner, I can't rent to you. What would my neighbors think? People on the march, moving the heart and soul of a white Roman Catholic priest at St. Boniface Church. He listened to the Vietnam veteran. He watched the African-American woman win election to the city council, introduce a fair housing bill, vote alone for that bill, time after time after time. People on the march, moving into the deepest fiber of the teenagers playing basketball on neighborhood playgrounds, the young adults on the streets who could not find work, not the Milwaukee of happy days, though it is that same time, that same place. People on the march, moving history into drama, the setting, Milwaukee, St. Boniface Catholic Church, the 16th Street Viaduct, the 15th Street Freedom House, Kosciuszko Park, Wisconsin Avenue, City Hall, the city jail, the cast of characters, young and old, black and white, powerful and challenging power, cowardly and courageous, stodgy and on the move. The plot, wind from the south, southeast, dreams, nightmares, closed doors, closed still. The rising action, the turning point, the denouement, lights, camera, action, 200 nights of marching, people on the march, Milwaukee, Milwaukee, maybe an epilogue, maybe in your steps, maybe the other side of the long expanse of bridge you think you can't cross. Whew. Just one more from this section, arrest the white girls. Just as I put my foot on the clutch to downshift my little Rambler into the turn, I saw the sign, no left turns, those then flashing red and blue lights. The cops made us park, get out, took us downtown, put my sister Jeannie and me each in a separate room, questioned us. What were you doing there? I was so scared, in a separate room with them without my sister. Why were you in that neighborhood? Questions like that. Before letting us call our parents, they brought us together. You girls should stay away from there. You don't know what you're doing hanging around with those people. At that moment, something overwhelming filled the room. I could see the unsaid word try to wrap its tentacles around us. Let me read there's a poem in the third section that is the same as the title of the book. Holding myself together. In the days before the cockpit door was fortified and locked before takeoff, in the days before I had a rack of masks near my front door, in the days when we went early to yoga so we could choose a front row spot, in the days before shopping carts were sanitized after one use and before another, in the days when sentences did not break and their halves scatter, In the days when I danced the baby to sleep for his nap, he hummed to the tune I sang as he was giving himself over to sleep. We gave baked treats for the flight crew one Christmas vacation flight. Masks were for Halloween or for thieves or the Lone Ranger. We went out to lunch after class and marveled at our strong backs and arms. I bounced a rubber ball to amuse my toddler, restless in the shopping cart, and she laughed her magical laugh at the wonder of it rising again and again. In those days, when I did not walk about half scattered myself. Yeah, so let me get my sentences together here. Last section has a lot of pandemic poems, and I'll read one of them. A pandemic of misses. I miss eating with other people, I said. I miss our yoga class, my sister said. I do cat, cow, and downward facing dog at home, she said, but then I don't know the rest of the practice, and I miss that. I miss the symphony playing in its new concert hall, he said. I even miss the old hall, the concerts there. I miss my grandchildren, she said, the chaos of all four with their parents overnight at my house. I miss soccer, the granddaughter said, my team, the rush to our goal, the well-timed, well-aimed pass. I do not miss playing goalie. I miss school lunch. I miss school breakfast, the grandson said. I miss school, his sister said. I miss my friends. I've learned better with my friends, with our teacher, smiling. I miss her in the room, cheering for us, keeping us on track. I miss going into my office where I could concentrate. I miss being able to concentrate, their dad said. What my daughter, their mom, had already said quietly to me. At least my hair is now long enough to pull into a ponytail, but I miss the ease of wash, scrunch, and go short hair. I miss George going to visit him, and now he's dying, alone. I miss being oblivious to the fact that someday, maybe someday soon, I'll die. I miss the worries I had in February. I miss the April, the Easter, the birthday party I thought back then we'd have. I miss the stretch of space between moments of anger. I miss moments of anger that do not become a stretch of outrage. I miss having a place to hurry to. I don't miss the hurry. I miss being easy while talking to others. I miss easy. I miss ease. He misses the children they now fear having. And whatever happened to government of, for, and by the people, she said, I miss that. I miss that a lot. Yeah, he said. Yeah, they said. So I'm going to call Angie back here and conclude with a poem for two voices called Amplifying Hope. I hope no one gets hurt. I hope the earth survives.
I hope we all survive.
I hope there's space for Izzy to become an artist.
For Leah to make music on her small violin.
I hope
I hope
to open my refrigerator to yellow, orange, and green peppers, to kale, beets, carrots, turnips, tortillas, eggs, and butter.
even meat.
I hope words don't fail me.
I hope I don't fail words.
Don't forget what goals I set.
Don't forget to set grand goals.
Don't forget little ones, the fun of playing in snow despite the cold,
Of cold water from a summer sprinkler.
listening to the grown-ups when they think they're unheard or the message missed.
Don't forget to tell the little ones what our little hopes were, how we healed.
How odd we were at autumn's ginger moon low on the horizon. How we learned the earth turns. How in all the gnarled world, people already hurt.
Already hungry, already rendered speechless.
Scant hope this world. May that scant hope not be dismantled.
May the dismantlers not make things worse.
What if we are our hope?
We hold our hope in our clasped hands, in our broken, open hearts.
I hope,
I hope,
we
we
hope
hope
the
the
earth
earth
survives.
survives.
Thank you, Margaret and Angie, for a wonderful program this evening. I'm now going to end our recording and we'll break into a new session of an open mic.